If you're an American citizen trapped overseas after October 7th, the world's on fire. Where can you turn for help if the American government isn't returning your pleas? Well, that's where the good team at Project Dynamo steps in. So naturally, we got to talk about that.
Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show.
Well, hey there, folks. Brian Nichols here on the Brian Nichols Show, and thank you for joining us on, of course, another fun-filled episode. I am, as always, your humble host, joining you live from our Cardio Miracle Studios here in lovely Eastern Indiana. Revolutionize your heart health with Cardio Miracle. This natural supplement boosts nitric oxide for healthier circulation and blood pressure, meaning increased energy, better sleep, enhanced blood flow, and yes, better sexual health for you gentlemen out there. So feel the Cardio Miracle difference today. Visit cardiomiracle.com. Use code TBNS for 15% off your order. And yes, I've been using Cardio Miracle now for about 4+ months, and the Cardio Miracle difference is in fact real. So go ahead and join the tens of thousands of other folks who are in fact experiencing the Cardio Miracle difference for themselves. I guarantee you will not be disappointed. And if for whatever reason you are, no worries. There's 100% money back guarantee. So you quite literally have nothing to lose except for that high blood pressure, sleepless nights, and gentlemen, yeah, so none of that. So if you want to go ahead and be part of the Cardio Miracle team, cardiomiracle.com, code TBNS for 15% off your order. All right, now moving into today's conversation, we're talking all things rescue. When you are stranded and your government is not there to offer any assistance, who do you call out to? And let's make it real. October 7th and to today, if you were over in Israel and you were an American citizen, who could you call? Well, go ahead and give a call to Brian Stern and the amazing team over at Project Dynamo. Brian's returned to the show to talk about that and more. Brian, welcome back to the Brian Nichols Show.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm looking forward to this conversation, Brian. First, I got an elephant in the room, right? Thank you. All the work you and your team have been doing. And, we're recording here right around Veterans Day. So, I think it fits even perfect into what we're talking about, but also the work that you guys are doing. So I think for everyone listening today, yes, a big thank you to all the work you and your team are doing. And let's go into that, right? For the folks maybe who missed your first appearance here in the Brian Nichols Show. Brian, who are you? What's the work that Project Dynamo is doing? And then let's laser focus in terms of how you guys are bringing that over to what's taking place over in the Middle East today.
Sure. So my name is Brian Stern. I'm the CEO and founder of Project Dynamo. ProjectDynamo.org is our website. We are a veteran-led, donor-funded international rescue organization. Basically, the best way to think about us is we work where the U.S. government is not, for whatever the reasons are. We're not political at all. We get no help from the government or anything like that. But if you're an American and you're stuck, and our allies too, we don't just do Americans. We do friends and allies also. But if you're in a place like Afghanistan or Ukraine or Russian occupied Ukraine or Sudan or Hurricane Ian or the fires in Maui or Israel and Gaza, and coming soon to a theater near you, China and Taiwan, you call us and we'll figure out a way to get you out. We've conducted successfully over 602 rescue missions, soon to be 605. We have a few in the hopper that are about to be executed. And that turns into just under 7,000 people that we've rescued. We're a little bit different than other so-called rescue organizations insofar as we actually go forward and do the operations ourselves. I just got back. I'm on my way back over. Here in Israel, we were taking missile fire and the whole bit. October 7th happened, and like many of these conflicts, this is our 7th full-scale deployment in 25 months, which is wild.
Wow.
October 7th happened. We saw it on TV, packed our stuff, put a crew on the street, led by me. I lead most of the missions myself, with a crew of emotionally complicated individuals, and we go and do the hard work ourselves. We have a team of volunteers in the rear. They do all of our case management. They're the real backbone of Dynamo. So think of them like dispatch, and we're like the fire department. It's the best way to think about it. And we've done over 300 Americans so far, and our demand signal is increasing, and we're entirely donor funded. So if your listeners are looking to do something, that's what we say at Dynamo. Don't be a spectator. If you're looking to do something, go to the website. If you need help, click the evacuation button, will help. If you want to help, click the donate button, and you can help us out in a very big way.
It's all great stuff, Bri. And let's dig into, I know you preface that with saying we're not political. We don't get into the world of politics. And yet, I say unfortunately, it's the reality of the world we're in right now. Your name was kind of brought into the world of politics, not by anything you guys did, but one of the running names there on the GOP side, Ron DeSantis, who is also sitting governor of Florida, reached out and I think brought quite a bit of funds to help with the case that you guys were going over to Israel to help remove folks there who are American citizens. And I think I was reading an article. We were like, yeah, we're going to do that anyways, right? We were planning on doing our mission with or without the financial assistance of the state of Florida. That certainly helps. But I mean, definitely, I think from a PR standpoint, it does help bring the name of Project Dynamo more to your average person. I think opens the eyes that this is actually an avenue we can take without full-fledged boots on the ground from an American military standpoint. And it, at the very least, opens up ways that we can get people out of harm's way without having to go full-fledged, war zone kind of mentality.
Yeah, I mean, in order for Dynamo to work, we need three things. We call it the Triad. We need three things to exist. One, we need a person. We need someone in trouble, right? We call that, that's like the requirement, right? We need someone or a group of people that are in trouble somewhere where no one is helping them, right? Number two is I need a team. I need a team of people that can actually do the work, and we can't do everything. I wish we could, but we can't. There are limitations to what we can do, contrary to common opinion, having broken people out of jail from Russia. We've done a lot of really hard things, but there are some things that we just can't do. And then the third thing is funding. And for us, it's an operational requirement. These airplanes don't fly themselves. Sources don't recruit themselves. Buses don't gas themselves, and all that stuff. So when October 7th happened, we launched and had hundreds of people reaching out to us and started doing what we do. Prior to Governor DeSantis's help, we had conducted 597 or 98 operations without any help from anybody, purely grassroots donors. So thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people. What happened is he saw, and I don't know, I've never really had a conversation with him, but I suspect that he saw a big gap. The federal government wasn't doing what they needed to do or should have done, or they weren't doing it fast enough. And he wanted to do something. He's a Navy vet. He's a combat vet. It's Veterans Day. We're not political. And I don't think that his support was inherently politically focused, forgetting that he's running for president and governor and all that good stuff. Bottom line is he's still a good American. And he wanted to do something, but I think that he wanted to partner with somebody that he could have confidence in, right? He needed somebody that had done this before. So we got connected through some of his guys, knew some of our friends and like that. And it was very much, we have funding, you need funding, you have people, we want to rescue people, you do rescue people. So it's very, very symbiotic in that regard. And from the Dynamo perspective, I could care less where the funding comes from. Right. It really doesn't matter if it comes from the Girl Scouts of America, the ASPCA, the state of Florida, the B'nai B'rith, the United Fraternal Brotherhood, or the United Association of Spoonmakers. Doesn't really matter. It really is irrelevant to us, and to the extent that we've had people that have literally just. This is not the first time we've had someone pay for a plane for us before. We've had Berry Aviation in December 2021. Great company. Berry Aviation came out of the woodwork. We had a ton of Americans. I was stuck in Afghanistan with our people, and we were struggling for funding. They came in from the high ropes, and they were frankly a little skeptical, honestly, which is fair because what we do sounds a little crazy sometimes. And their perspective was, well, how do I know if I give you money that it will go to the airplane? And my response was, don't give me the money. And the CEO and their COO, who are really good guys, were kind of taken aback by that. And I said, look, I'll just connect you with my airplane broker. We've got the plane lined up. We've got the landing clearance from the Taliban. Everything's good. Don't give me the money. give it straight to them. In fact, if you can negotiate a better charter, God bless you. No problem. We don't, I don't get a commission based off how many people we rescue. I could care less. I just need someone to pay for the damn thing. Right. So we've seen this before, and that was very much the circumstance working with the state of Florida and Governor DeSantis's guys or people. Was, I don't care who charters the plane. As long as it shows up and you can get there and I can get there and get the people on the bird. I don't take credit. Don't take credit. I don't care. I'm not running for office. None of those issues are relevant to me. I don't really care, frankly. I care about the safety and the safe evacuation and rescue of American citizens stuck in a war zone. Right. Everything after that, I could care less. Call it what you want. Do with it what you want. Doesn't really matter to me.
Let's go back to something there you brought up, Brian, and that is, and by the way, just for context, the last time you were on the show, I think it was immediately thereafter, around the time of the Maui wildfires in Hawaii, right? So natural disaster on American territory. Now we're talking about war zone over in Israel, Middle East, Gaza Strip, that entire general area. Very, very different dynamics. You mentioned having to reach out to the Taliban and get, which just sounds crazy that you're having these conversations, but you have to, right? Having conversations with the Taliban to get air clearance so you can land the plane. What does that look like? Like what are the logistics behind the scenes that we're not seeing, we're not privy to, but that goes in behind trying to do something like what you've been doing over in an actual war zone, which, I mean, yeah, obviously it's a lot of work going into an area with natural disasters, but I'm sure the different, intricacies that go into planning for an active war zone, I'm sure is just, miles and miles of pages long, it seems.
Sure. Each one of these things, the way we do things in Afghanistan is different than the way we do things in Russian occupied Ukraine, which is different than the way we did things in Sudan, which is different than the way we did things in Maui, and so on and so forth. Each one of these things they're kind of like children, right? You have 4 kids, you have 4 babies. One's going to grow up to be a brain surgeon. One's going to grow up to play for the New York Mets. One's going to hopefully become a brain surgeon or a dentist or a lawyer or something. And one's going to grow up to be Hannibal Lecter. How do you know when you're looking at 4 babies that are still wearing diapers? How do you know that? You don't. And the way you approach each of these problems is very much like that. The way Afghanistan works still to this day is fundamental, which is also an active war zone. People get killed in Afghanistan every single day. When we go, it's incredibly scary. Make no mistake that conflict is alive and well. Same in Ukraine. As an example, in Afghanistan, you can land airplanes. In Ukraine, you cannot. If it flies, it dies in Ukraine. So everything in Ukraine is done by land. But in Ukraine, all the borders are open. In Afghanistan, all the borders are closed. So without doing any hard math, two very large-scale conflicts, the way we have to peel that banana is very different. But they all have something in common. Number one, they all have Americans that are stuck. From the Dynamo perspective, that's the common thread. And the second part is that there's Americans in trouble and no one is coming. So if the government shows up, we get out of the way. I'm not trying to augment or even compete with the government. We pay $1 trillion a year in taxes for national security. My entire operating budget is like a rounding error for lug nut grease in the Pentagon parking lot. You know what I mean? So we exist where they're not going to be, either because they left, or if they're not coming, or if they haven't gotten there yet. And that's kind of what happened with Israel. Is we started doing, Americans were stuck. We're taking missile fire. The whole country's under attack. It's very, very scary. It's very unknown. We're in the 33rd, 34th day of this conflict. It's brand new. No one knows what tomorrow will be. So Americans got scared. They couldn't land. The plane started canceling flights and stuff. And that's not the airline's fault. It's the insurance. You can't get insurance on a $100 million airplane in a war zone. The first thing that happens is all the insurance carriers dump the airlines. So now they can't land. People are stuck. Where do you go? Right. No one knows what this conflict will be. So some people are like, oh, well, go to Jordan. Well, if you're a Jewish American, Jordan may not be, even if it is okay, you may not be comfortable with that, frankly. this thing happened on the anniversary of the 6-Day War, where all the surrounding Arab countries attacked Israel 50 years prior. So, Jordan is a wonderful country, and King Abdullah is a wonderful man. And, they're certainly an ally of the United States. But if you're an Orthodox Jewish kid from New York and you have, you're a practicing Jewish guy, and your country and your people just got attacked, where babies were beheaded and women are being raped in the streets, I don't know that you want to go to Jordan. I don't know that you want to or will go to Jordan so fast. So the best way to come out is by air, by far. Well, how do you land an airplane when the airspace might be contested? Maybe yes, maybe no, possibly. Turns out it stayed open, but there was a real risk of it being closed. If Iran started lobbing missiles and Lebanon started doing things and Syria started doing things, the airspace would have to close. Now what do you do? Well, then the answer is by boat. So good news, we have boats also. So thinking through all these different problem sets, your average person doesn't know how to do this. They just don't. It's complicated stuff. It's not tourism. We're not an Uber service. If you can take an Uber from wherever you are to safety, you don't call us, you call Uber. It's a different thing. So, we saw a lot of this in Ukraine with a lot of so-called rescue organizations that would say, get to Lviv in the West, and then we'll get you to Poland. And they would do that. There's a particular organization out there, and they claim to have rescued 25,000 people. Well, the reality is in Lviv, the Victoria's Secret store is still open. The Tumi store is open. The Louis Vuitton store is open. It's incredibly safe. If you can get to Lviv, you can get to Texas. That's not exactly a rescue. When I'm in Lviv, I take an Uber to the border. Is literally how I get there. So in the world of rescues, that's not us. We go on the front lines. We go nose to nose where it's really, really, really bad and where things are terrible. And we don't, where if this was the fire department, we don't rescue kitties out of trees. We go into blazing fires and pull people out. That's what we do. So it's a little bit different.
So, Brian, this is a question that I had, and I'm sure other people have as well. You go to an active war zone. I mean, you mentioned you're getting shot at. There's rockets going at you. Like, what can you and your team do from a self-defense standpoint? Are you allowed to engage in combat? Like, how does this all work?
Well, when we were in Israel, we were taking missile fire. Basically, we hoped and prayed that the Iron Dome worked. We were actually on a call with someone. Speaking of Governor DeSantis, we're actually on a call with he had a whole group of people in a conference room at their emergency operations center. We're getting ready to conduct an operation that they're funding and doing that part of it. And we're about to start. And all the alarms start going off, and all the loud noise, all the alarms go off, and the lights start blinking, and you start hearing boom, 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 boom. And my laptop, we're on a Zoom call, and my laptop started to shake. And the head of the thing says, "What the hell's that?" And I said, "Oh, it's Iron Dome. Tel Aviv is getting attacked." And he says, "Really?" And I go, "Yeah, that's why we're here." it's kind of, I'm not sitting in Tallahassee there, brother. It sucks out here real bad. I'll call you guys back as soon as I can. And shut my laptop down, went down to a bomb shelter. Then thank God I had Wi-Fi. And we were talking about some of the intricacies of the operation at that very moment. I fired it up, and from the bomb shelter, I'm like, "All right, guys, so anyway, about this thing." And they're like, "You seem incredibly calm." I'm like, "Well, not much I can do about it. I can have all the guns I want. I can't shoot down missiles. I wish I could, but sadly, I'm pretty, I can take care of myself, but I can't, I do have limits also, so it is dangerous. We've had a lot of close calls. The Russians sent hitman to kill us a few times. We got one of those or two of those on video. That's always a lot of that always kind of makes us take a moment of pause and laughter of, those dummies. They thought I was walking into their ambush. They walked into my ambush. They're not the sharpest sometimes. But all these things are very dangerous. If it's safe, there's no need, it's called a rescue for a reason.
Right.
It's inherently dangerous by the very nature of it. I got attacked by the State Department not that long ago, where they attacked me and they said, Project Dynamo, we don't like Project Dynamo because they take risk. And people reach out to me, can you believe what they said? And I was really confused. I mean, we're a war zone evacuation element, organization. It's risk. I mean, that's part of it. It's like going to the beach and getting sand in your toes. It's just one of those things. There's no way to do true war zone rescue operations and evacuations without risk. And my response was, maybe that's why they're not there. They don't want to assume as much risk for Americans as we do. I don't know, but that's above my pay grade. That's a them thing. But I was so confused as to that attack. I didn't. It seems so silly to me. Like, how dare you assume risk in a war zone? Well, I don't know. That's what has to happen. Sadly,
that's the whole point. That's to quote Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's why I'm here. Right. That's the whole point that you and Project Dynamo are out there to do, is where the government, in this case, the U.S. government, drops the ball. And the questions then obviously pop up. Why are they dropping the ball in such frequent numbers too? And then of course you put on the conspiracy hat, but that's a conversation for a different podcast on a different day. Brian, we are unfortunately getting hard pressed for time, which means we're going towards the tail end of the episode where we do our little segment called Final Thoughts. So what I'll do is I'll kick things off and I'll turn things over to you to wrap things up. But this goes into kind of what I was talking about last time you were on the show. We at the Brian Nichols Show, we hate the idea of just pointing at problem and screaming problem. We say we need to have solution, right? How do we solve the problems that we see out there without just being rhetoric, without just being, just empty pissing and moaning? Let's actually have some substance behind our critiques. And in this case, offer viable solutions. And Brian, what you're doing over at Project Dynamo is exactly what we need in this world as real solutions to the problems we see. And what you're doing, I think, speaks to even more how important it is, but also how, yes, there are very real risks, very real consequences that go along with doing the right thing. If this was easy, everybody would be doing it, or frankly, nobody would have to be doing it because it would already be being taken care of. And yet, to the point you articulated so very well earlier, that nobody was doing it. Nobody is taking the step to do the hard stuff, right? When the proverbial hits the fan, what are we going to do? Are we going to do the hard, difficult, but necessary course of action, or the easy, maybe a little bit easier to explain away course of action, which ends up being no course of action? And when no course of action happens, as a sales guy, I cringe, because that means status quo. And status quo, it means I lost, right? I didn't make the sale. So I think it's important for us to not just talk about these problems and articulate how these problems came to be, but then offer very real, tangible solutions, much like you and the team over at Project Dynamo have been bringing forward. Brian, that's my final thoughts for today. What do you have for us?
I think everything that you just said, Brian, is accurate. It's Veterans Day, and as a veteran, I spent a lot of time in war, and we take an oath, and that oath doesn't have an expiration. And I watch TV, and I'm watching on my other TV over here, protests in London and what's going on in America with those students cheering for Hamas. And I often weep, right? And I scratch my head all the time. And how did we get here? And what's wrong with us? And we are the greatest nation in the world. But I find myself, even for a moment, debating that point. And I never thought in my lifetime that I would. And the reality is the oath that we all take as veterans is to the people and to the Constitution. It's not to politics. All these politicians are terrible. Every single one. I don't care what party. I don't care if the this one or that one. Could care less. I have yet to meet a truly focused, non-political politician. Doesn't exist. And it's not their fault. That's just part of it, right? So I don't hold them in contempt or anything. But then I look at things like Dynamo, and I'm encouraged. And I'm encouraged because we have at Dynamo, I've got black, white, purple. I've got men, women. I've got old, young. I've got fat, skinny. I've got hairy, bald. I've got veteran, non-veteran. I've got combat veteran, non-combat veteran. I've got gay, straight. I got people who don't know if they're gay or straight. But we're all united in purpose. And every time I go on TV, as you know, I do a lot of media, every single time, not only do we have good Americans who are donating, trying to help us, which I really appreciate, not for me, but for the people that we're trying to rescue. And that gives me hope that people actually care. But more importantly, what we get is I get resumes of people every single day saying, how can I help? This is my background. I got an email today from a dentist. I don't know what we do with a dentist exactly, but I'll figure something out. But it gives me hope and reminds me that as Americans, we're a country founded in conflict. The Boston Tea Party, by today's standards, would be a terrorist event, right? Yep. And that's okay that we fight. That's okay that we're different. That's okay that you can believe what you want to believe. And I can stand on the street corner screaming at you, explaining what my position on a particular issue. And you could be screaming back at me, telling me that I'm nuts. And this is why you think I'm nuts. Where we've gotten a little bit lost is people don't actually know what they're talking about.
Yep.
And we have a lot of people, 66% of Americans don't have a passport. Two-thirds of Americans cannot understand the world outside of their iPhones if they wanted to. Yet, 90% of Americans or more are completely convinced they understand the world. So, without doing any hard math, we have some big challenges. And that's how you get to things where you see, people in front of the Stern School of Business at NYU cheering pro-Hamas things, a 10-minute walk from the ground zero 9/11 memorial, and they are completely convinced that they know what they're talking about. I was at a session not that long ago with I went and spoke to some of these kids, and I invited them. There was a bunch of young female students who are cheering Yay Hamas, and I invited them, and I said, "Look, I'm on my way back to the border. I'll bring you to Gaza." And they said, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah, you guys want to go?" And they said, "Yeah." And I go, "I'm so surprised." They said, "No, the humanity." I go, "Look, you guys are Americans, right?" And they go, "Yeah." I go, "I've never met a woman that enjoys being raped before." And they said, "What?" I go, "What do you think they do to you? You're a 23-year-old attractive college American citizen female. You think they're going to bring you tea and hookah? They're going to pass you around like a cigarette." And they were like, I go, "So I'm surprised. Thank you for coming out. I need volunteers. When do you want to go?" And they were like, "Oh me, oh my." And I go, "Well, that's what you're protesting. So I'm very confused as to how you're cheering for this stuff. I'm so confused by it. Help me understand." And without doing any hard math in a very, very, very quick conversation, you could see this eureka moment of, yeah, maybe I actually don't know what I'm talking about. And that's what I think we need. I think we need a lot of truth. I don't think we need a lot of yelling and screaming. I think discussion. There's a lot of sides to all these issues, and a discussion that's empirical, where people can actually have a conversation. That's what the First Amendment's all about. That's what Veterans Day is all about. That's why we fought. That's what my friends fought. That's what we died for, fought for. And that's really what I think we've kind of gotten away from. And so that's kind of what I think. In the world is the America is the best country in the world. You go anywhere. I've been to 68 countries. Nowhere is as good as us. Nowhere. We may not be beautiful. We may not be perfect, but we're the best thing out there. And everywhere else pretty much sucks. Is competing for second place. So that's my final thoughts. And please donate. ProjectDynamo.org.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'll say we're including all the links for donations and stuff in the show notes for sure. But just to put a nice little cherry on top of that, a delicious ice cream sundae you just built for us. Here's a real life example, and I'm sorry to my brother-in-law, but my brother-in-law, like that, this is him to a T. He absorbs everything that is quote unquote real life to him through the context of a computer screen, right? And that's fine, but you at least have to acknowledge that what you're getting is absolutely 1000% filtered through the respective lens that you want it to be filtered through. And this is true, by the way, for anybody who's in our audience. Like, go outside of the audience for a couple episodes, listen to other podcasts that are overtly not on board with our politics. That's a good thing. I want you to hear different perspectives and different ways of I guess really digesting these very controversial topics. But what I challenge you as a member of my audience, and what I challenge myself as the host of this show, is to not just give you what you want to hear. I want to give you what you need to hear. I will have folks on from all walks of life, from many different ways of thinking. Are they always 1000% on board with, as a show here, we tend to be with that small L libertarian, philosophy? Not always. No, we have folks who are conservative. We have folks who are moderate. We have folks who are more left leaning. All different folks from different ways of life. And we have conversations that are sometimes difficult to have because, believe it or not, you're going to have situations in life where outside of your echo chamber, outside of your bubble, you're going to have to engage with people who don't think like you do. And part of sales is being able to, first and foremost, uncover people who might be open to different ways of thinking, different ideas that you bring to the table. But then how do we sell these ideas? And people won't just start listening to you because you're right. They listen to you because you know how to articulate your message. You know how to present what your solution is and how it solves the very real problems that we are absolutely identifying. So yes, I can't agree more, Brian, and the work that you and the amazing team over at Project Dynamo, you guys are doing. I can't thank you enough, because this is another great example to throw up there on the shelf of, hey, when we have problems that are out there, there are absolutely organizations who are willing to meet the need and to bring not just their services to the table, but actually ultimately making things better. So kudos to you and the amazing team there at Project Dynamo, Brian. And folks, if you want to go ahead and support the work that Project Dynamo is doing, I will include all those links in the show notes. Any, I guess, final words of wisdom for the audience today, Brian, as we wrap things up?
Just thank a veteran. You know, if you can read or write, what's that saying? If you can read and write, thank a teacher. If you have a teacher, thank a veteran, or something. I always screw that line up, but whatever that is, veteran. The veteran community is struggling. They need our support too, and the country is not the dumpster fire that a lot of people think that it is. It's just not. We have problems, okay, but we are an amazing place, and our country is predicated on the people, not the politics. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Here. All right. Well, with that being said, thank you for joining us, folks. If you, again, got some value, go ahead, give today's episode a share. When you do, please tag yours truly at B Nichols Liberty. You can find me on Facebook as well as over on X.com. Also, you can find the show over on your favorite video platform, whether that's YouTube, Rumble, X.com. We're uploading our entire episodes over there. And also Ben Swan's Sovereign, SOVREN. And by the way, if you are watching today's episode over there, well, you're seeing it before anybody else as your Sovereign exclusive. So thank you for joining us. And then also for the podcast version of the show, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, wherever it is that you get your podcasts, you can find The Brian Nichols Show. Just hit that subscribe button, and also hit download all unplayed episodes. We're like at 782, 83 episodes at this point. So you have a treasure trove of conversations to dig through. We had our conversation there with Brian Stern. Most recently, I had Clay Clark here on the show talking about their Reawaken America tour. So dig through those episodes. I guarantee you're going to find at least maybe 100, 200 or so that will absolutely leave you educated, enlightened, and informed. And I mentioned the past episode that Brian joined me here when we first started talking about Project Dynamo and talking about the Maui wildfires. So if you're joining us on the YouTubes, I'll make sure I include that right about here. It should be popping up. So go ahead, stick around, and join us over at that conversation. Otherwise, all other episodes over at BrianNicholsShow.com. And oh, by the way, I'm going to tease this for future episodes. Pay attention, because we'll be doing a brand new bumper sticker giveaway. Don't hurt people. Don't take people's stuff. If you want to get a free bumper sticker, well, you got to make sure that you're subscribed to the Brian Nichols Show, because we're going to be talking about that as we head towards the holidays. So with that being said, there's a little teaser for you. But otherwise, Brian Nichols signing off here on the Brian Nichols Show. For Brian Stern from Project Dynamo, we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at BrianNicholsShow.com.